that. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to our New Jersey Commission AmeriCorps session on planning grants. If you are interested, if you are brand new to AmeriCorps, or you're interested in AmeriCorps in general, we are only going to be funding new programs as planning grants this year. So you are in the right place if you are interested in doing a planning grant. We currently have 4 planning grants as current programs. If you are one of them, then your session will be at 2 o'clock for when you will be applying for an operating grant. Anyone that's here as a recompete, also, you would be applying for a planning grant. I mean, an operating grant. Excuse me. Apologies. My dog was a little rambunctious there. So 2 o'clock is the session for operating grants, and that's for programs that are currently in the 3rd year of a program, or for planning grants who we're working with currently. If you also don't have any experience with AmeriCorps, we do have a pre-recording on AmeriCorps 101 that will not be covered in this session. So I urge you to take a look at that. And that is a recording that was done by Lori Barrows on our staff, and it will be available. Lisa, is it available already?
No, not yet. I will post it, but actually there was an issue with the recording, so I am actually presenting AmeriCorps 101. So
okay, yeah. Very good. Okay. So, so Lisa will be providing more information on that and when it will be available on the website. Okay. This session is already pre-recorded, so you will be looking at a recording that I did yesterday. However, at the end, I will hold a live Q&A. So if you have questions, please hold your questions until we get to that portion. Okay? Good luck, everyone. And again, if you have questions, please hold them till the end. Thank you.
One moment.
Hello there. Welcome to the New Jersey Commission's AmeriCorps NOFO for Formula Planning Grants. My name is Yvette Ramos, and I will walk you through the process of how to apply for a planning grant for AmeriCorps. If you are new to AmeriCorps, I highly recommend that you go to our website and first see the AmeriCorps 101 presentation in order to get an idea of what AmeriCorps actually is before you think about applying, because you want to have that information to see if this is a good fit for your organization or not. Or you could stay and listen to this presentation and then go back to listen to that presentation on AmeriCorps 101. In a nutshell, AmeriCorps is a national service program that engages the energy and idealism of individuals who are then called AmeriCorps members. These members provide service in their communities in an important area. There are 6 focus areas within AmeriCorps, and they provide this service based on the design of your application and the approved contract that we provide to an organization. Those services will then generate impact in those communities, and your organization will have a bigger reach and a bigger impact in the services it provides. In return for their service, the AmeriCorps members will gain knowledge in that particular area that they're serving in. They'll gain experience in that area that they can put on a resume. They will have training. They will also get a stipend, a modest stipend, during their term of service. And at the end, if they're successfully completing their program, they can also get an education award. So those are the pros of running an AmeriCorps program. Additionally, since this is a pre-recorded session, we will have a Q&A at the end of the live session on February 15th. So please write down your questions as we go through this slide presentation, and I will answer them at the end during the live presentation. So the purpose of planning grants is basically to support the development of AmeriCorps programs that will engage AmeriCorps members in evidence-based interventions to solve community problems in future years. Planning grants recipients are expected to be better prepared to compete for the AmeriCorps program grant in the following grant cycle. Planning grant recipients will engage in a year of planning and infrastructure that would eventually support the operation of an AmeriCorps operating grant. So the idea is that you would have a full year to prepare for an eventual operating grant. We at the Commission have found that this is a much more successful way of actually getting programs to be better prepared and to be able to engage their AmeriCorps members with the adequate preparation that they need in order to be successful with their programs. Planning grant funds may not be used to support AmeriCorps members. So during your planning grant year, you will not have members in your program. You're going to be preparing and you're going to be learning about what the AmeriCorps members cannot do, how to set up files, how to set up the program itself, how to design your community logic model, and all of those things throughout that year. Planning grants provide funding that allows organizations to hire or designate a staff person or consultant who's responsible for working with the New Jersey Commission staff and outside consultants that we provide to develop a high-quality AmeriCorps program that is designed to meet a community need within the AmeriCorps focus areas of education, environmental stewardship, economic opportunity, veterans and military families, disaster services, and healthy futures. So if you have a service that you want to provide in your community within these 6 focus areas, you might want to consider bringing on AmeriCorps within your organization. Okay, the formula NOFO. There's one NOFA, and that is up on our website, and it is in 3 different sections, 3 main sections. For the planning grants, you're going to focus on Section 1, which is the New Jersey Commission Grant Information and Timeline, and Section 2, which is only for planning grant applicants, and that would be new applicants only. So we currently have some planning grants that we're working with. Those are considered current planning grants. They will be applying for operating grants at this time so that they could actually be considered to start a new program, an operating program this September. But for the purposes of this particular presentation, we're only going to focus on new applicants who are considering planning grants for AmeriCorps. Okay, first section is our timeline. So our timeline began February 5th when we disseminated our flyer. Hopefully you received that information. On the 15th, which is the date of this session, we are giving the first TA session. This is pre-recorded, so it will be recorded at that session in terms of all the questions as well, and it will be available on our website for anyone to access afterwards. We will also have the TA session for the operating and the recompeting programs, which is programs that are currently in the 3rd year or current planning grants or prior planning grants. So that session will take place at 2 o'clock on the same day. February 23rd is a technical assistance session on evidence, logic models, and performance measures via Zoom, and that is conducted by CREES at Montclair State University. It is the Center for Research and Evaluation in Education and Human Services. They are partners. We partner with them to provide these services on the program design aspect, which has to do with, providing how to provide evidence, how to write your logic models, and how to develop your performance measures. I highly recommend that if you are considering a planning grant, you will not have to write the logic model and performance measure, but you would want to attend that session to get an idea of what you would be working on if you got a planning grant and you were successful in getting funded for a planning grant, what you will be working on throughout the year. Notice of intent to apply is on March 8th. So we expect that on March 8th, you should let us know, and so that we can anticipate how many readers to get for our sessions. Additionally, once we get your notice of intent to apply, we will be giving you sample budgets that you can refer to in helping you to develop the budget portion of this NOFA as well. On March 22nd, the formula applications are due to the Commission on eGrants by 4 o'clock, new and recompeting applicants only. And on March 25th, we will also be getting we'll start beginning the staff review of the applications and budgets for thorough. We'll be reviewing those to make sure they're complete. On March 25th, we will have a technical assistance session for our readers. March 28th, the formal applications are due to the Commission on eGrants by 4 o'clock, only for continuation applicants. So that would not be any of you, that would only be our programs that are continuing. AmeriCorps funds its programs generally for 3 years, its operating programs. Planning grants are only for 1 year. So you would only have 1 year and of funding for this particular session. On April 1st, the staff review of the applications for continuations begin. April 9th is the Reader Arena session. So that will be the session where the readers will be reading all of our formula applications. And the way that it's funded is programs or applications need to attain a score of 75 points at least, and then they are put in rank order. And when we run out of funding, even if they achieve 75 points, if we run out of funding, they would have to wait until we do have additional funding, either another year later or whenever we have that additional funding. Okay. On April 22nd, revisions. We will also be asking for any revisions. CREES will be reviewing some of the applications. They will not be reviewing the planning grant information applications, only the recompetes. And on May 1st, our commission board will vote on the selected applicants and continuations at an 11 o'clock meeting. On May 10th, the New Jersey Commission is the target date for submission of the formula package to AmeriCorps. And on May 17th is our formula application due to the AmeriCorps State and National. So that's our due date to them. We have not been advised when they will notify us of the awards, but generally speaking, once we submit our package to them, they generally fund all of the applications we submit for formula. Okay. This formula NOFO will fund the following types of grants. So planning grants, as I mentioned before, it's for 1 year of planning and development, and they do not include funds or slots for AmeriCorps members. Operating grants consist of cost reimbursement grants and formula fixed grants, and only programs that have been funded for 1 full 3-year cycle can apply for a formula fixed program. Okay. The difference between cost reimbursement and the planning grant, of course, is that the cost reimbursement programs have AmeriCorps members, and we provide the funds for that. As a matter of fact, most of the funds that programs receive for this program will go for the cost of the AmeriCorps members. This particular program will not give you a lot of funding for the operations of your program. Most of it will go for the members to provide that impact, to provide. So it's more for capacity, to increase the capacity and the reach of your services. Okay, so what are the sections that you will have to do in the NOFO? These are the different sections in the formula NOFO. The first section is the New Jersey Commission grant information and timeline. As a planning grant, you will need to read that. Section 2 is the planning grant application, and that's what I'm going to be going over today. Section 3 is for operating grant applicants, and you will not be responsible for reading that. Section 4 is the 2024 mandatory supplemental information, and you should read that because that contains definitions of concepts contained within the NOFO. And then on Section 5, 2024 AmeriCorps State and National Application Instructions. You will also need, as a planning grant, to review that, because that will contain the instructions for you to be able to submit your application in eGrants. It'll help you to create that application and to be able to submit it. And then Section 6 is the 2024 AmeriCorps State and National Performance Measures. You do not have to read that. You're not going to be writing performance measures for this application, but you may want to peruse through it just to get a sense of the types of programs within those focus areas that you could develop a program for. And then Section 7 is the Applicant Operational Financial Management Survey. That is completed online, and that is basically so that we get a sense of how strong your financial management systems are and how stable they are as well. Okay, so these are the 6 areas, 6 focus areas that AmeriCorps typically funds. It's economic opportunity, education, healthy futures, veterans and military families, disaster services, and environmental stewardship. I will give a brief definition of these, and there is more information contained within the NOFO that you would want to read on each of these sections. Okay, so economic opportunity is improving the economic well-being and security of underserved individuals, and that could be anything from providing food relief, helping with securing housing, assisting with financial literacy. So it's a gamut of different services that you can provide, that your organization can provide to improve the economic well-being of individuals. Education, improving educational outcomes for underserved people, especially children. AmeriCorps is particularly interested in program designs that support youth engagement and service learning as strategies to achieve high educational outcomes. Educational programs can consist of anything from tutoring, academic supports, mentoring, and it can range from grades K through to high school. So you could, pick a particular service. So, for instance, if you want to assist children to be able to read independently by 3rd grade, and your AmeriCorps members are going to provide tutoring, you would definitely want to write something that has to do with, how they're going to do that, how often, and so on. So that could be one function of an education focus that you want. But again, there's many that they can do. There's assistance with homework. They can do enrichment programs, after-school programs. So education is quite broad in many of the ways that the members can serve in your program. Healthy Futures, support for health needs within communities, including mitigating the impacts of COVID-19 and other public health crises, access to care, aging in place, addressing childhood obesity, especially in underserved communities. But again, Healthy Futures is not limited to only this. There's many services under Healthy Futures. It's basically to connect individuals to health services, to be advocates for them, to provide services that they may need in those particular areas. Veterans and military families, improving the quality of life of veterans, military families, caregivers, and survivors. Disaster services, helping individuals and communities prepare for, respond to, recover from, and mitigate the effects of disasters, and increase community resiliency. Environmental stewardship, supporting communities to become more resilient through measures that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, conserve land and water, increase renewable energy use, and improve at-risk ecosystems, address climate change issues, and especially in underserved households and communities. Again, environmental stewardship could run the gamut of a number of different services. This particular NOFO is open to all of these individuals or all of these types of organizations: Indian tribes, institutions of higher education, local governments, nonprofits, state service commissions, state and U.S. territories. So these are just some of the types of organizations. Basically, any organization except for for-profit organizations. Okay, so let's talk about what is the minimum number of MSYs, the period of performance, and so on. So you can see the first column is the minimum MSYs. Now, what is an MSY, you might ask? An MSY is it's a terminology that was developed that's called member service years. But basically what it is, it's based on a 1,700 FTE position. So it's basically an FTE, full-time equivalent. So for instance, for planning grants, because you're not going to have members, you're not going to have any MSYs that we will consider in this application. For cost reimbursement, they have to apply for a minimum of 8 MSYs, or 8 full-time equivalents. Now, AmeriCorps has different slot types, okay? So, for instance, 2 half-time members could be the equivalent of 1 MSY, of 1 full-time equivalent. So, even though you have 8 MSYs, you could actually have many, many slot types, depending on, how those are configured to be equal to that 8 MSYs. The maximum MSYs would be 15 MSYs. So a program has to have at least 8, but cannot be more than 15 unless they are a recompeting program that has 6 years or more of continuous funding. Then they can propose an application of 18 MSYs. Okay. Again, you at this point as a planning grant would not have to be concerned with minimum or maximum MSYs. Your maximum funding under a planning grant would be up to $85,000. So you can only apply for $85,000 for this particular program. Out of that amount, $10,000 will be set aside so that you can provide, CREs can provide training sessions for your planning grant in the areas of evidence, logic model, and the outcomes for your program, basically. Period of performance measures, sorry. Period of performance would be 1 year, and this would begin September of 2024 and conclude on August 31st of 2025. Okay. So that's your period of performance for a planning grant. Okay, you would have to submit your application in eGrants. The application instructions section in the NOFO will explain to you how to do that. But this is, again, an electronic submission. The applicant's authorized representative must be the person who submits the application, and they must use their own eGrants account to sign and submit the application. Applicants should contact the AmeriCorps hotline at this number or via eGrant questions if they have a problem when they create their account, prepare, or submit the application. You may also contact us at the Commission. There's a possibility if we have the time, we will help you to actually create it. But again, try first with the hotline as well. Okay. Application content for planning grants. You would be completing these sections for your application. So you'll have to do the narrative you'll be doing the face sheet, which is automatically generated when you complete elements within the eGrant system. So the name of your organization, it's basically the demographic information for your program. You'll be filling out then the narrative section. So that would be the executive summary, and that's a brief description of the proposed program, the program design, organizational capability, and the cost effectiveness of the budget adequacy. So these 4 elements are considered to be the narrative section for your program. You will also have to fill out the performance measures section. However, you are not required to develop performance measures for the program. The reason we're going to have to fill this out is we're going to be putting zeros and maybe a few ones to zero out that section, or you won't be able to submit your application in eGrants. It's just a requirement that we're going to have to do. So if you get stuck on that, please contact us. I will get on a Zoom with you and help you to zero that section out. The standard form 424A is the budget, so you will have to fill that out as well. And then there's continuation changes section. You're going to enter NA into that field and eGrants, as well as clarification, authorization, assurances, and certifications. You'll just be putting NA in those sections. So you'll only have to worry about the narrative section and the face sheet and zeroing out the performance measures and possibly the logic model, but I'll give you more guidance on that. Okay, page limitations. There are mandatory page limits to the narrative section. Your application must not exceed 10 pages for the narrative, and in determining whether an application complies with page limits, the Commission will count the following in the narrative. So the executive summary, face sheet, the narrative portions contained in the program design, organizational capacity, and cost effectiveness and budget adequacy section of the application. The Commission strongly encourages applicants to print out the application from the review tab portion to submission to check that the application does not exceed the page limit. Okay, so please don't exceed the page limit, and how you do that is you go to the review tab. There's a link on the upper left-hand corner that will say review. You will go in there, and then you will print out the application to make sure that it's not exceeding those 10 pages. Okay. Notice of intent to apply. The submission of a notice of intent to apply is requested and is due Thursday, March 8th in 2024. Please complete the online form that is available through this link or in the NOFO. There's a link there for you to complete that form. You'll need to answer the following questions: address, contact name, email address, phone number, and the focus area your organization plans to address. And the application must be submitted in eGrants no later than March 22nd, 4 o'clock. Okay. Additional documents. So you will have to fill out that online financial management survey. It is online, and the link will be in the NOFO as well. And optional for planning grants only. If you wish to submit letters of support from partnering sites, organizations, stakeholders, or matching partners, you may do so. You can submit those to us by the submission due date, emailed to AmeriCorps.NJ@sos.nj.gov. Okay, please don't be sending in like 10 of these, letters. We just try to keep it, to a reasonable amount that if you wish to submit it. It is optional. You do not have to. The readers are going to go basically by your filling out the criteria. By addressing the criteria, that's how they're going to score your application. But the letters of support are just a way of kind of confirming, oh, yes, we have this partner, or yes, we have these matching funds, or whatever, okay? All right. There is a system for award management called SAM, and you will just make sure that all your registrations with SAM and that you have a unique entity identifier available, so that because this is part of our due diligence, we won't be able to fund you if indeed this is not up to date. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the criteria and the process of submitting this, the information that you're going to need. So the performance goals or expected outcomes. So these, in order to receive funding, planning grant staff or consultants must agree to engage in the following during their year of planning. So this is a planning grant, but it's a very structured planning process. I will provide, at the Commission, or our staff will provide you with a timeline of different activities that you're going to be pursuing throughout that year. So these are some of the things you have to basically be ready to engage in. You have to be committed to developing a high-quality operating grant application during the competitive and/or formula NOFO periods in 2024-25. What does that mean? Basically, for the 24-25 year, throughout that year, so in the spring of 2025, you would be applying for formula for the following September. That starts September of 25. So the goal would be that from September of 24 through the spring, you're going to be doing planning. and you're going to be developing an application. You will submit it for that formula NOFO, and then also you have the option of submitting it for the competitive application in the fall of 2025. Okay, so that's how that's going to work. You have to meet virtually with a designated New Jersey Commission staff member who will act as your program liaison on a regular basis, typically once a month. So those are what we call catch-up calls, or basically, and those calls generally last about an hour. Sometimes they go over a little bit more, but that's your opportunity to kind of let us know, how you're doing, if you have questions, and so on and so forth. Attend all New Jersey Commission events. Okay, so it is expected that you will be attending our Starting Strong, which is basically swearing in of our AmeriCorps members. That generally takes place in October. I'm sorry, Starting Strong is the training that we do for program managers, program directors, and that takes place during the summer. Launch is the one that takes place in October, and that's generally to swear in our AmeriCorps members. Career Day generally takes place in March. The end of the year celebration, which is kind of, again, just as it states, it's a celebration of what the members have achieved through their year of service. National Service Conference is a conference that's sponsored by the Association of State Commissions, or ASC, and it generally is out of state somewhere. This year it's in Minnesota. I don't know where it will be the following year, but that's basically an expectation that you will have to budget for, and any other New Jersey Commission sponsored events during the planning year. You would also have to participate in all New Jersey Commission scheduled monthly program director calls. So that's generally those take place again once a month. You would participate in all New Jersey Commission scheduled trainings for program directors throughout the planning year. So sometimes we do different trainings for program directors. You would be expected to attend that as well. You would agree to visit a minimum of 1 or 2 existing AmeriCorps programs, which will be selected by the New Jersey Commission staff. We try to pair our planning grants up with existing programs that we have, and we'll try to do it according to focus area, but there's a lot to be learned from that kind of peer exchange as well. Agree to meet with staff from the Center for Research and Evaluation in Education and Human Services, which is CREES, located at Montclair State University, to develop an evidence-informed program design, including evidence, logic model, and performance measures that will be used as part of the 2025-26 operating grant application. A minimum of $10,000 needs to be budgeted for this training. It may be that we may have to increase it depending on how many planning grants we have. But right now, it's a minimum of $10,000 out of that $85,000 that would need to be budgeted for that training. And generally, what they do is they have about 5 sessions where they go over the evidence, where they go over community problem, the logic model. Logic model session generally is 2 different sessions because it's in 2 parts, and performance measures as well. They also will meet individually with the program and so on. So it's a great tool to help you to actually have a successful, hopefully a successful application. The one thing you should know is that even though we provide a lot of tools to our planning grants and a lot of support, there is no guarantee that you will get funded, okay, because that is determined by the readers in a reader panel, and our commission staff really don't engage in reading those applications or scoring them. That is done by readers who have experience in AmeriCorps and in various different focus areas as well. So again, even though you go through a year of planning, there is no guarantee that you will actually get funded for an operating program. We hope that this will give you the tools to be better prepared to make that application successful, but that is determined by every different planning grant applicants. Everyone has a different writing style. Everyone has, you will ultimately be making that determination of how you write your application. Okay. Provide a minimum match of at least 24% cash or in-kind and seek commitments for match in an operating grant application. So there is a cash match. It could be there is a match It could be cash or in kind, but there is also a match waiver. So if you're selected for a planning grant, you can. So far, we've been told we can continue to do these match waivers. I have seen programs either have a very reduced level of match or no match at all. So, so you would, in your application, you would provide that 24% cash and or in kind, but there is an opportunity later on to request a match waiver. That would have to be submitted to AmeriCorps National, and they would make that determination. I have not yet seen anyone turn down, so just to let you know. Submit quarterly progress and fiscal reports to the New Jersey's AmeriCorps system and SAGE as well. So we have 3 different systems that we work with. One is called the eGrants, which I've mentioned before. That is the AmeriCorps National system for managing applications and so on. We are moving towards modernization, towards a different system, but right now, for this application, we're still using eGrants. And also, we have AmeriCorps, which manages our federal reports, member timesheets, staff timesheets, and progress reports as well. So you'll be using that. You'll learn to use that, as well as the state's contracting system, which is called SAGE. And that's basically where your contract will get executed and your payments would come from SAGE as well. Okay? All right. What can a planning grant fund? Planning grants can provide funding for staff, consultant time, travel, and other costs related to work developing the program design, the grant application itself, develop stakeholder commitments, and participate in training related to AmeriCorps program management. This would result in the potential program applicant to have a stronger application and program than if they had not had that planning grant to begin with. Examples of grant line items, expenses. Okay, so, and there may be others, but this is typically the kinds of things that we'll fund. Staffing for the program, for the planning grant, consultants, benefits for the staff, office space, travel to the various trainings, and to out-of-state training to the National Service Conference, training sessions and conferences. So for the New Jersey Commission requires planning grantees to send 1 staff person to all events and trainings and participate in director meetings, etc. Allow use for program planning stakeholder meetings. So you may determine that you want to have 3 stakeholder meetings in the year to make sure that, you know, as you develop your program, you get input from those stakeholders. They could be future sites. They could be individuals who want to provide match support for your program. So you could use some of those funds for the venue itself, for supplies to prepare for those meetings, for food. As long as it's an all-day meeting, you could propose expenses for those kinds of things as well. Okay, planning grant selection criteria. So this is the criteria that the readers will be using to assess the scores that they will give your application and to determine whether or not you will be funded. So the first section is the program design section. That is 50% of the scores for your overall application. And these are the different sections. The problem to be addressed for 10 points. The theory of change vision statement and description. So basically what we mean by theory of change is a statement and a description that you provide about the problem that exists, the outcomes that you want to achieve in your community, and how you foresee those AmeriCorps members' activities to be able to make that change in that problem. Okay, so basically it's 3 elements. Again, the problem, the outcomes, and the interventions you plan to provide. Okay, so that's 15 points. Future use of AmeriCorps members in an operating grants intervention. So how do you foresee those? If you were to have an operating grant in the future, how would you use AmeriCorps members? How many would you want in your application, do you think? How would you basically, what do you envision in terms of the kinds of tasks they would be undertaking to achieve those outcomes and so on? Planning activities timeline. So that's for 15. You're going to develop your own timeline of, the different aspects of the elements that you will need to address for this grant. And then organizational capability is basically 2 sections here: organizational background and staffing. You're going to talk about, your organization, all the great and wonderful things it does, and how it's staffed and so on, your experience doing this kind of work. Commitment to AmeriCorps requirements for 5 points. Cost effectiveness and budget adequacy for 25 points. Okay, and that equals 100%. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the first section, program design, for 50%. The problem to be addressed for 10 points. Describe an existing problem you would address in an AmeriCorps operating grant. Explain why the problem is prevalent and severe in communities where the program plans to serve. Provide cited relevant studies and data supporting the problem. Identify causes of the problem, including the role current or historical inequities faced by underserved communities may play in contributing to the problem. So this is where you talk about why there is a need in your community, why you would like to address that problem, and the kinds of impact you think need to happen to address those problems. It would be your theory of change statement. So in the theory of change statement and description, you're going to, for 15 points, identify an initial theory of change that includes the problem, the intervention, or the activities to be carried out by future AmeriCorps members, and the anticipated outcomes. Describe how the proposed intervention is responsive to the identified community problem. So you want to make sure that there's alignment between the activities those AmeriCorps members would be undertaking to addressing the problem. You want to make sure that it is responsive to that community need. Describe how the intervention is likely to lead to the outcomes identified in the theory of change. So what kind of outcomes would you like to see in your program? And describe how the expected outcomes articulated in the application narrative represent meaningful progress in addressing the community problem you have identified. Future use of your AmeriCorps members in an operating grants intervention. Okay, so you're thinking forward to the day when you when you would have an operating grant. So what you want to describe in this planning grant for 10 points is you want to describe the role of AmeriCorps members in a future operating grant and, if applicable, of leveraged volunteers. You want to describe the rationale for using AmeriCorps members to deliver the intervention. So why are you using? Because, of course, if you have more capacity, you have a wider, you can address more issues, you can have a greater impact, and so on. Describe how the service role of AmeriCorps members will produce significant contributions to existing efforts to address the stated problem. Provide an estimated number of AmeriCorps members who will deliver the intervention. So what is your vision of how many AmeriCorps members you would need, how many you would want to manage? Remember, this is like managing, a cadre of members. Could be from 8 full-time members, or to maybe 20, 25 members. If they're smaller slot types. So you would have to provide an estimate. Most planning grants generally pick about 10 AmeriCorps members to deliver their service, 10 to 15, because they want to start, on the smaller side to make sure that, they get the experience of running an AmeriCorps program before going to a bigger program. Okay, planning activities timeline for 15 points. Identify an estimated initial timeline of activities you would undertake to develop an infrastructure for a future application and operating program. Elements of the timeline should include, at a minimum, the following elements. These elements do not need to be developed at this time of the planning grant submission, just during the planning grant phase. So you're going to have a finalized theory of change and logic model. Include the time to be spent fleshing out these elements with the Commission's contracted Center for Research and Evaluation in Education and Human Services at Montclair State University. So the development of your logic model generally in your timeline should be like those first 6 months of your grant. You want to be working consistently with CREs. That would probably be like every month, 1 or 2 sessions with them and so on. So, again, in your timeline, when you develop that timeline, make sure that you specify that in your application. Your evidence-based core activities that define the intervention or program model that members will implement or deliver, including the duration of the intervention, the dosage of the intervention, and the target population for the intervention. So what you envision in your logic model would be these kinds of things. How long will the intervention be? How long will the dosage be? So those are your core activities that your AmeriCorps members are going to be undertaking. Your identification of performance measures is a strategy to measure program impact. Okay, so generally speaking, in your timeline performance measures, you'll be developing those probably around January to February, okay, because that's when CREs does their whole session and their training generally on performance measures. A plan for data collection, okay, so if you had an operating program, how would you plan to develop data collection for your program? Plan for creating an advisory board or stakeholders. So in your planning grant year, when will you begin to identify stakeholders? When do you envision you'll start to develop an advisory board or a group of core individuals that will have a stake in your program that you want to involve in the planning process? For some, it could include things like contacting the local colleges as a source. If you're going to be trying to recruit AmeriCorps members who are college students, you would maybe want to meet with somebody there that could assist you with being a source for recruitment to bring in students into your program as AmeriCorps members. So that might be one stakeholder. Or another organization that does that where you provide services that they will be using to increase capacity in the particular focus area. So there's a number of different types of stakeholders that you can bring in to the planning of your program. Plan for identification of potential community partners and service sites, or at least the criteria by which they will be selected. Plan for organizational capacity, site supervisor training, oversight, and program evaluation. So one of the things the AmeriCorps application generally asks is a plan for how your program will train its supervisors and how you will evaluate your program as well. Plan for recruitment, selection, orientation, content training, supervision, support, and retention of members. So when will your plan for the recruitment selection, when will you develop that in your planning year? Generally, this is something that you begin from day one in terms of starting to think about the sources from where you're going to recruit, how you're going to select your members, and so on. And hopefully by the time that you apply for your operating grant, you will have a good recruitment and selection plan for your program, a plan for orientation and content training, the kind of training you'll give your members, and support for your members as well. A plan for inclusion and diversity in members and beneficiaries, including the participation of the Commission's Diversity Council or development of a host agency plan. So a DEIA initiative, a plan for how you're going to be inclusive in your AmeriCorps program once you get an operating grant, and so forth. And then, a plan for data collection, advisory board, okay, and then a plan for career building and leadership development of members. So one of the things you want to talk about is how are you going to develop leaders with your AmeriCorps members? What are the kinds of things you're going to do? Are you going to have a curriculum? Maybe you want to develop a curriculum for leadership development for your members. Maybe you want to be able to help them with their career. Maybe you want to bring somebody in to talk about different careers. So what is your plan for developing those AmeriCorps members in the future? Creating an operating budget and detail. Plan for securing in-kind and cash match for 2024 planning grant. Again, these are not things that you have to have finalized. These are just, all we need is a timeline for when you will be working on this throughout the year of planning. okay? And then completion of the draft application for formula will be in the winter spring of 2025, okay, for that NOFO. Incorporate the following in the planning timeline: monthly check-in calls with our commission staff, monthly program manager calls with the commission, and commission and ask, which is the Association of State Commission trainings and events as outlined in the NOFO, and then the timelines for activities are reasonable and feasible. Okay. All right. Organizational capability. Now we're going into 25 points. So the organizational background and staffing details the roles, responsibilities, and structure of the staff that will be implementing the AmeriCorps Planning Grant, as well as providing for its oversight and management. So what's the kind of criteria that you will select for your program director or your program manager for this planning grant? It could be existing staff that you have. Generally, we don't expect 100%, but there is a lot of planning that goes into this particular year. So it would be good if you had a dedicated person that focuses just on the planning grant. We do have current planning grants where that is generally what is done. Describe your agency's experience and expertise in addressing the focus issue to produce an AmeriCorps operating program application. So basically, you're talking about, the experience and expertise not only of your organization, but on the individuals that you are going to choose for this position. Provide a statement about the status of your agency's SAM registration and unique identifier. So please let us know if you're up to date on these or not. Commitment to AmeriCorps requirements. The organization agrees to adhere to all AmeriCorps rules and regulations included in the AmeriCorps terms and commitments. The terms and conditions, and that should be conditions. Prohibited activities and criminal history check policies. Just to let you know, all staff on planning grants, with the exception of consultants, actually, I'm not even sure if you have to go through the criminal history check. At one time you were, but I think they've taken that requirement out. But you will have to plan for criminal history checks for your AmeriCorps members once you have an operating grant. Okay. Okay, cost effectiveness and budget adequacy for 25 points. The budget is submitted without mathematical errors. Proposed costs are allowable, reasonable, and allocable to the award. The budget is submitted with adequate information to assess how each line item is calculated. Please make sure you include calculations. Again, as I mentioned, once we know that you plan to move forward with this program, we will send you a sample budget, okay? It's not, and again, sample budgets are just that. They're samples. They give you some information on some of the trainings, the costs, but again, this is your budget, so you have to make sure that it is reasonable for your organization as well. The budget cannot contain costs for AmeriCorps members. The budget includes costs for all New Jersey Commission and Ask required meetings and events, and again, that sample budget will contain most of that information. Budget includes a minimum of $10,000 for cost of training on evidence, logic models, and performance measures. Okay. Now, you can also, if you're, for instance, going to be working on, or your program is going to be developing, let's say, something on the environment. Okay, this is just an example, and you want to send, your staff for the AmeriCorps Planning Grant to a particular conference within the state or somewhere that has to do with the focus area that you're going to address in this application in the environment, you can do that. Okay, you're not limited to just the conference and events for the commission, but you do need to set aside those funds for that as well. Okay, creating your application in eGrants. Okay, so planning grant applicants will need to refer to the Section 5 2024 AmeriCorps State and National Application Instructions in order to create that application. Follow the instructions listed in the table of contents for new applicants with the following exceptions. You do not have to develop the logic model. Okay, you're just going to enter NA into all the fields in this link. The budget planning grants do not require costs for AmeriCorps members. Only fill out sections 1 and 3. Okay, so section 2 is all of the costs associated with AmeriCorps members. You don't have to fill that out for a planning grant. Only sections 1 and 3. 1 is your operating, all the operating costs, and section 3 is your administrative costs. And administrative costs can be up to 0.0526. Okay. All right. Performance measures. Again, planning grants do not require performance measures. However, applicants will need to enter information into this section, or eGrants will not approve submission of the application. Applicants will need to follow the instruction below, performance measures for planning grants. So in the NOFO, I actually provide you with step-by-step instructions on how to actually zero out the information that you would normally be providing in performance measures. Okay. If you have problems with that, let me know. I will get on a Zoom with you and help you to do that. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. Okay. That is the end of this presentation. Again, I urge you to go to see the AmeriCorps 101 presentation just for the ins and outs of AmeriCorps, the benefits that the AmeriCorps members get in return for their service, prohibited activities, the education award information, and those kinds of things that that you want to know about AmeriCorps in general. This presentation was just how to apply for a planning grant, a 4-year AmeriCorps program. Okay, and you can contact us. You can send us emails to americorps.newjersey@sos.nj.gov. If you have questions or you need any assistance from us, we try to really provide a lot of support for planning grants so that they're successful in their planning year. Okay, thank you so much. Okay.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope that was helpful and at least clarified a little bit for you what the planning process is for you and how to go about applying. Now I will open it up for questions and answers. Lisa, were there any in the chat at this time, or do we want to start with questions?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. Okay.
I mean, a good question was asked. How many planning grants did we award last year? And so I believe we had 5 or 6 applicants, and so we awarded 4 planning grants. They were awarded to Boxwood Learning Center, the Greater Bergen Community Action, NJ Coalition to End Homelessness, and SEWA. And we're looking forward to them. SEWA, sorry. And they will all be applying for operational grants this go around.
That's right. Okay. Anyone else have any questions on any of this? I know we didn't answer all of the questions in the presentation, but if you do.
We've got some questions coming in. So a question about how much were the grants that were awarded, the planning grants?
Yes. Well, we awarded some to mostly about $70,000 to $85,000. Again, $10,000 of each grant went to pay for the technical assistance provided by CREES on the area of evidence and performance measures and logic models. And that is ongoing TA sessions that they provide generally up until about February or March. So from September to February and March, they do several sessions. They are required and mandatory sessions for all of our planning grants. And the funds get paid directly from the planning grantee to Montclair State University, to CREES. Okay.
I have someone asking, Drew is asking, is the number of MSYs, minimum or maximum, a yearly number or for the 3-year operational grant?
So for the operational grant, and again, we'll be going over this more at the 2 o'clock session. For those, generally, there is an opportunity to, so for year 1, you write your first application. For year 2, if we have the funds for increasing the number of MSYs you apply for, we will allow it, but we don't know how much we have in funding from year to year. So there is a possibility you would be able to increase that during years 2 and 3. Most of our programs pretty much stay with the same amount they apply for in year 1. And then if they want to grow or expand, they will then apply in their second year cycle, 3-year cycle. That's where they would apply for more. But that's what generally happens.
The next question, for the training and conferences, does it need to be the program director or can it be other staff or members?
It could be, the program director, when we say the program director, it's whoever you choose in your organization to be the lead person in managing this planning grant. For most of our programs, the agency director generally is involved to a certain extent, but then they have somebody that actually manages the planning grant process on a day-to-day basis. And usually that person is the one that goes to the trainings and all of those things. So yes, generally the program director is the person that would go.
Then a follow-up question. Someone is asking when we would be sharing the budget, sample budget, and the presentation. So the presentation with the recording of this presentation with the PowerPoint should be up on our website by Monday at the latest. I will send a blast out to everybody when it's posted. And then to follow up the sample budget, when do we?
We will be sending that out once we know that the agency is interested in applying for the planning grant through the notice of intent to apply. We will then issue that sample budget. You can look at the application instructions. There is a budget checklist. There's budget instructions. There's a template there for how the budget is. So you can take a look at that through the NOFO. Just click the link for that section that says 2024 application instructions, and it's all laid out there. Again, for the budget, the only thing that you would not be filling out would be the section 2 of the budget, which is all of the member costs, which are things like the member stipend, healthcare for the member, their FICA, and workers' comp. Those things you don't have to fill out in the application.
Is the match required for the planning grant or just the operational grant?
Match is required for planning grants in the amount of 24%. However, most of our planning grants, our current planning grants, did submit for a match waiver, and the match was waived or reduced, depending on how they wrote their justification for that match waiver. You could submit for the match waiver as soon as you find out you're getting funded, and that's how that would work.
Can additional staff attend the training?
Yes. Additional staff can attend the trainings. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Brittany. Brittany said it's been helpful. It's what we aim to do.
Yes, if you have additional questions, we will be posting questions onto the website on a periodic basis, so that everybody can have access to them. But you can send us the questions to AmeriCorps.NJ.sos@sos.nj.gov. It changes every once in a while, so but that's basically where you can contact us.
Here, I'll drop our email address in the chat.
Lisa, could we put in the chat our website also, so that people have access, if they didn't get the flyer.
For sure. No worries.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
And yes, this recording will be up on our website within a couple of days, probably early next week.
But again, I've got everybody's email address from registering, so I'll send out a blast. So as soon as I know they're posted, you'll know they're posted. And here's our website with where everything will be posted on our grant opportunity page.
Okay. So again, AmeriCorps is a program that has a lot of rules and regulations. You'll be managing, if you get an operating grant, eventually you would be managing a cadre of members. So it's things like, as if you were running a small nonprofit. within, with AmeriCorps. You're managing individuals, you're supervising them, you're making sure they're on task with their service. In some instances, assisting them with, some issues that they may be bringing, that they may have. But it's a great program. It's a wonderful program. We've had programs with us from day one in 1994. And they just keep coming back to get funded for AmeriCorps. They love the program so much. But it is a challenging program. It's not something to be taken, it's not your typical program. Um, you really have to, there's a lot of rules and regulations around those AmeriCorps members and how they serve. Okay. Okay, well, good luck. And again, let us know if you need any assistance. We'll be here to assist. And thank you so much. I appreciate your attendance. And again, good luck. All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Okay.
Woohoo.